This is Mr. Eugene, and today we're having a conversation that gets me more pushback than almost any other topic I discuss. We're talking about single mothers and their sons. Specifically, we're talking about why single mothers, even good single mothers, even dedicated single mothers who are doing everything they possibly can, struggle profoundly to raise their sons into functional, healthy, well-adjusted men. This is not an attack on single mothers, it's a message for fathers. Let me be clear about that from the start. Many single mothers are doing heroic work under impossible circumstances. The difficulty they face raising sons is not evidence of their personal failure. It's evidence of something structural, that boys need their fathers in ways that even the most capable, loving, dedicated mother cannot fully substitute for. And here's where this gets uncomfortable for people. Because we live in a culture that has spent decades insisting that fathers are optional, that mothers can do it all, that family structure doesn't matter as long as there's love, that suggesting a child needs their father is somehow insulting to single mothers who are trying their best. All of that is wrong. Demonstrably, empirically, catastrophically wrong. And the boys being raised without fathers are paying the price for that wrongness with their development, their outcomes, their life trajectories, and often their freedom and their lives. So today we're going to examine honestly why single mothers struggle to raise healthy men, what specifically is missing when fathers are absent, what the data tells us about the outcomes for boys raised without fathers, and why this means that men have an absolute obligation to remain in their children's lives, even when the relationship with the mother has ended. Because your son needs you in ways his mother cannot fulfill. And pretending otherwise is not compassion, it's negligence. Stay with me. This matters more than almost anything else we discuss on this channel. The data we're not allowed to discuss. Let me start with the data because the data is so overwhelming, so consistent across decades of research, that the only way to ignore it is deliberately. Boys raised in single-mother households have dramatically worse outcomes across virtually every measurable dimension of well-being and success compared to boys raised in intact two-parent households with their biological fathers present. Educational outcomes, boys raised without fathers are significantly more likely to drop out of high school, less likely to attend college, less likely to complete college if they do attend. The educational achievement gap between fatherless boys and boys with involved fathers is substantial and persistent. Criminal justice involvement. Boys raised without fathers are dramatically overrepresented in the criminal justice system. Approximately 85% of incarcerated youth come from fatherless homes. Let me repeat that because it's one of the most damning statistics in all of social science. 85% of young men in prison were raised without their fathers. Substance abuse, boys raised without fathers have significantly higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse, starting at younger ages and progressing to more serious addiction. Mental health, higher rates of depression, anxiety, behavioral disorders, higher rates of suicide and suicidal ideation. The psychological toll of father absence is severe and well documented. Unemployment and earnings, lower employment rates, lower earning potential, less career stability. The economic consequences of growing up without a father extend throughout a man's entire working life. Relationship stability. Boys raised without fathers are more likely to father children outside of marriage themselves, more likely to abandon their own children, perpetuating the cycle of father absence across generations. This is not subtle. This is not marginal. This is a catastrophic pattern affecting millions of boys whose life trajectories are being fundamentally compromised by the absence of their fathers. And here's what's critical to understand. These outcomes persist even when you control for income. Poverty makes everything harder, but father absence has effects independent of economic disadvantage. A poor boy with an involved father does significantly better across all these measures than a poor boy without one. The father's presence matters in itself, not just as a source of financial resources. What mothers can't teach sons about being men, now we get to the hard part. The part that generates the most resistance because it sounds like I'm saying mothers are inadequate or that women can't raise boys. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this. A woman, no matter how capable or loving, cannot teach a boy how to be a man because she has never been one. She can teach him many valuable things. She can love him. She can provide for him. She can create structure and discipline and opportunity. But there are specific things about male development, male psychology, male navigation of the world that require male modeling and male guidance. She cannot teach him how to manage male aggression. Boys have testosterone-driven aggressive impulses that need to be channeled, directed, controlled. A father who has navigated his own aggression, who understands it from the inside, can teach his son how to harness that energy productively rather than destructively. A mother experiences male aggression as frightening or threatening. She doesn't understand it experientially. Her instinct is often to suppress it entirely, which doesn't work. Boys need to learn to channel aggression, not eliminate it. She cannot teach him male emotional regulation. The way men process emotions is different from how women process them. Men compartmentalize. We separate emotional experience from task completion in ways that allow us to function under pressure. This is not emotional suppression or unhealthy avoidance. It's a legitimate and functional mode of emotional management that boys need to learn. Mothers often interpret male emotional regulation as emotional unavailability and try to change it into something more resembling female emotional expression. This leaves boys confused about their own internal experience. She cannot teach him how to command respect from other men. Boys need to learn to navigate male hierarchies, earn respect from male peers, establish their position in male social structures. This requires understanding male competition, male bonding, male communication styles. A mother has never had to navigate these dynamics as a participant. She can observe them. She cannot model them or guide a boy through them from lived experience. She cannot teach him how to protect. One of the core functions boys need to develop is the ability to protect, physically, emotionally, strategically, to stand between danger and the people they love, to assess threats, to respond appropriately. A father models this. A boy watches his father protect his mother, protect him, protect the family. He learns what protection looks like in practice. A single mother is often the one needing protection, which inverts the dynamic in ways that confuse the boy's developing sense of his role. She cannot teach him healthy masculine sexuality. How a man approaches women, relates to women sexually and romantically, navigates desire and pursuit and boundaries. Boys need to learn this from men who have done it successfully. A mother's perspective on male sexuality is from the receiving end. She can tell a boy what women want or what she wished men understood. She cannot tell him from lived experience what it's like to be a young man managing sexual desire, pursuing women, handling rejection, building confidence. Fathers teach sons how to be good men in relation to women by modeling it. She cannot give him the confidence that comes from father approval. There is something specific and irreplaceable about a father's recognition of his son's developing manhood. When a father looks at his son and communicates through words or presence or simply recognition, "You are becoming a man. I see it. I'm proud of you," that does something for a boy's developing identity that a mother's love, however strong, does not do. A mother's approval is always available because maternal love is largely unconditional. A father's approval must be earned, which makes it valuable in ways that shape a boy's sense of his own worth and capability. None of this means mothers don't matter. None of it means mothers can't raise boys who survive and even succeed. But it does mean that something critical is missing when fathers are absent. And pretending that absence doesn't matter, that mothers can simply do both roles, is setting boys up for struggles that were entirely preventable. The specific ways single mothers fail sons, even good ones. Let me be specific about the patterns that emerge even in single mother households, where the mother is trying her absolute best. Without overprotection and the prevention of healthy risk-taking, boys need to take risks, physical risks, social risks, the kind of exploration that might result in injury or failure. This is how they develop courage, competence, resilience. Mothers operating from maternal instinct to protect often shut down healthy risk-taking because it looks dangerous. Fathers understand that the danger is part of the value. A father lets his son climb the tree knowing he might fall because falling and getting back up is the lesson. A mother sees the potential fall and prevents the climb. Emotional enmeshment and the failure to encourage separation. Boys need to separate from their mothers psychologically to develop healthy male identity. This separation is not rejection, it's necessary individuation. Mothers, especially single mothers who often have no other adult relationship to meet their emotional needs, sometimes unconsciously resist that separation. They keep their sons close in ways that interfere with the boy's development of independence. Fathers actively push sons toward independence because they understand that's what boys need. Feminization and the discouragement of masculine traits. Single mothers are often uncomfortable with masculine energy, the roughness, the physicality, the competition, the aggression. Their instinct is to civilize it, soften it, make it more resembling what they're comfortable with. But boys need their masculine traits developed, not suppressed. They need to be rough and tumble. They need to compete. They need to test themselves physically. Fathers understand this and create space for it. Mothers often see it as problematic behavior to be corrected. The absence of male discipline. Discipline from a father lands differently than discipline from a mother. When a father corrects his son, the son knows he's being corrected by someone who has been where he is, who understands male impulses and male mistakes from the inside. There's respect in that. When a mother disciplines, even when she's right, the boy often experiences it as nagging or controlling rather than as authoritative correction. The respect dynamic is different, and boys need authoritative male correction to develop properly. The creation of white knight syndrome. Single mothers often unintentionally communicate to their sons that women are victims, that men are dangerous or unreliable, that a good man's role is to serve and protect women uncritically. This creates boys who grow into men with deeply unhealthy relationship dynamics, men who sacrifice themselves for women's approval. We cannot set boundaries with women who view women as perpetually in need of rescue. This is not healthy masculinity. It's a distortion that leaves men vulnerable to manipulation and unable to form equal partnerships. Again, none of this is the mother's fault in the sense of intentional harm. These are natural, understandable patterns that emerge when a woman is trying to do a job, raise a man, that requires a man's guidance to do properly. Why, but I turned out fine doesn't counter the data whenever this topic comes up. There are always men who were raised by single mothers who respond. I turned out fine. My mother did a great job. This is insulting to her. I understand that response. You love your mother. She sacrificed for you. You want to defend her. That's admirable. But I turned out fine is not data. It's anecdote. And anecdote doesn't counter statistical pattern. Yes, some boys raised by single mothers turn out fine. Some even turn out exceptional. But the data shows that on average, across populations, boys raised without fathers have dramatically worse outcomes. Your individual success doesn't change that pattern. It means you were fortunate or resilient, or your mother was exceptional, or you found male mentors elsewhere, or some combination of all of those things. The question is not whether any individual boy can succeed without a father. Obviously, some do. The question is whether boys as a population do better with fathers present. And the answer to that is unambiguous. Yes, dramatically, consistently across every measure. Defending your mother by denying the data doesn't help the millions of boys who are struggling right now in fatherless homes. What helps them is acknowledging the reality so we can address it. What fathers provide that nothing else replaces. Let me be specific about what an involved father provides to his son that cannot be fully replicated by any other relationship. Modeling of functional manhood. A boy watches his father navigate the world as a man and learns what men do, how men think, how men solve problems, how men relate to others. This is not abstract instruction. It's observation of a man functioning in his various roles over years. No amount of talking can replace that modeling. Initiation into manhood. Fathers create moments, sometimes formally, more often informally, where they recognize and affirm their son's transition from boyhood to manhood. These moments matter enormously to boys' developing sense of identity. They create a felt sense of, I am becoming what my father is. I am being welcomed into the company of men. Teaching through challenge. Fathers challenge their sons in ways mothers don't. They push them physically, intellectually, competitively, not out of cruelty, but out of understanding that boys grow through challenge. A father wrestles with his son and doesn't let him win until he's actually strong enough to win. That teaches the son about real achievement versus false praise. Calibration of male aggression and competition. Boys learn from their fathers where the lines are. How much aggression is appropriate in which contexts. How to compete without being cruel. How to win and lose with dignity. How to handle conflict with other males. This is learned through direct engagement with a man who has mastered these calibrations himself. Demonstration of male-female partnership. In intact families, boys watch their fathers relate to their mothers and learn what healthy male-to-female dynamics look like. They see how their father treats women with respect while maintaining his own boundaries and authority. They see partnership between equals with different roles. This cannot be taught, it must be observed. The gift of absence as lesson. This one is counterintuitive but important when a father is sometimes absent because he's working, because he's pursuing his own interests, because he has a life beyond the family. The boy learns that men have purposes beyond their families, that they are not defined entirely by their relationships, that healthy manhood includes individual mission and autonomy. Mothers who are always present teach boys that caregivers should be constantly available, which creates problematic expectations in their future relationships. The buffer between mother and son. Fathers create necessary psychological space between mothers and sons. They prevent the enmeshment that can occur when a mother and son have no other adult relationship mediating between them. This protects both the mother and the son from unhealthy codependency. None of these functions are small. None of them are optional for healthy male development. And none of them can be adequately performed by anyone other than a present, involved father. Why men must stay in their children's lives, no matter what. This brings us to the moral core of this entire discussion. And it's directed at men. If you have a son, you have an obligation to remain in his life, not an optional commitment that you fulfill when it's convenient, an absolute obligation that supersedes your comfort, your frustration with his mother, your desire to move on with your life, your anger about how the relationship ended. Your son needs you, not your money, though he needs that too. He needs your presence, your guidance, your modeling, your recognition of his developing manhood. He needs you there, consistently, throughout his childhood and adolescence and into his early adulthood. And before the objections start, let me address them. She's making it impossible for me to be involved. Fight harder. Document everything. Use every legal avenue available. Show up every time you're allowed to show up. Be relentless. Your son is watching whether you fight for access to him or whether you gave up because it was too hard. She turned the kids against me. Keep showing up anyway. Your son is being fed a narrative about you. Your consistent presence, your obvious love, your refusal to abandon him despite the difficulty will eventually create cognitive dissonance with that narrative. He will see that you never stop trying. That matters more than you know. I can't afford the child support and also afford to see them. Figure it out. Get a second job. Live more cheaply. Do whatever you have to do. Your financial sacrifice to maintain presence is part of what teaches your son about what men do for people they love. It's too painful to be in her life. Your pain is not your son's problem. You're the adult. He's the child. Your obligation is to him, not to your own emotional comfort. Manage your pain privately and show up for him anyway. I've moved on with my life and started a new family. Your obligations to your first family don't disappear because you created a second one. Your son from your first relationship needs you just as much as any children you have in your second relationship. Make time for all of them. None of these situations are easy. All of them require sacrifice. That's fatherhood. The sacrifice is the point. Your son needs to see you sacrifice for him because that's how he learns what men do. The cycle that must be broken. Here's the devastating pattern that plays out across generations. When fathers are absent, boys who grow up without fathers are far more likely to abandon their own children. The cycle perpetuates. Father absence creates the next generation of absent fathers. Why? Because boys who never saw what involved fatherhood looks like don't know how to do it themselves. They have no model. They don't know what fathers do, how fathers relate to their children, what healthy father-son relationships look like in practice. So when they become fathers themselves, they're operating without any template. They're more likely to make the same mistakes their fathers made, or that their fathers made by being absent, because they have no counterexample. This cycle must be broken, and it can only be broken by men who decide it stops with me. My father might have abandoned me, but I will not abandon my son. My father might not have shown me what fatherhood looks like, but I will learn it, and I will model it for my son so he knows what to do when his time comes. That decision, to break the cycle, to be present regardless of difficulty, to give your son what you didn't have, is one of the most important decisions a man ever makes. What this means for women before we close, I need to say something directed at women, particularly single mothers and women considering divorce when children are involved. Your son needs his father, not your version of what a father should be, not a replacement father figure, not you doing double duty as both parents, his actual father. Even if that father has flaws, even if the relationship between you ended badly, even if you're angry at him, even if he's not the man you wish he was, unless he is genuinely dangerous or abusive, and I mean genuinely, not just difficult or frustrating or unreliable, your son's relationship with his father is not about you and your feelings about him. It's about what your son needs for his development, and what your son needs is access to his father, generous access, consistent access that you facilitate rather than obstruct even when it's uncomfortable for you. Parental alienation, using your son as a weapon against his father, poisoning his relationship with his father, making it difficult or impossible for father and son to connect, is child abuse. You are damaging your son's development for your own emotional satisfaction or revenge. The long-term consequences for your son are severe, and when he's a man and looks back on what you did, he will understand what you cost him, and he will hold you accountable for it. Your job as a mother, if you are separated from your son's father, is to make it as easy as possible for father and son to maintain a strong relationship. Not for the father's sake, for your son's sake. Final thoughts: single mothers cannot raise men. Not because single mothers are inadequate, but because raising a boy into a healthy man requires male guidance, male modeling, male initiation that only a father can provide. The data on this is overwhelming. The outcomes for boys raised without fathers are catastrophic across every measure. And the boys currently growing up in fatherless homes are paying the price for a culture that decided fathers were optional and family structure didn't matter. Fathers are not optional, they are essential. And men who father children have an absolute obligation to remain in their children's lives regardless of what happens with the relationship with the mother. Your son needs you. He needs you in ways his mother cannot fulfill. He needs you to show him what men are, how men operate, how to navigate the world as a man. He needs your recognition, your challenge, your discipline, your modeling of functional manhood. Don't abandon him. Not because the relationship with his mother ended, not because it's hard, not because you're angry or hurt or would prefer to move on with your life. Stay, fight for access to him. Be present even when she makes it difficult. Your son is watching, and what he sees you do now will shape the man he becomes. Drop a comment with your experience. Fathers, are you in your son's life? How are you navigating the challenges? Sons, did you grow up with or without your father, and how did that shape who you became? Subscribe, because this channel will continue having the conversations about fatherhood and male development that our culture is too uncomfortable to have honestly. Stay healthy, stay present. And if you're a father,